Today, we're going to talk about how your smartphone is wrecking your life. You've got a smartphone. I'm willing to bet you may be watching me on that smartphone. I've got a smartphone. In fact, I've got a few different smartphones, and I think they're useful. We all know they're useful. We all use them. We've got our emails. We've got our Facebook accounts. We've got our text messages. We have this other thing on these smartphones called an actual telephone that we may use from time to time. But we realize their usefulness, but do we ever think about the drawbacks or the negative things that actually come from the smartphones? And I want to propose to you 3 ways your smartphone actually is causing you a little bit of damage. So here we go. The first way is that it's wrecking your social life. Listen, I know you might think that your phone is actually helping your social life because you're able to be on Instagram a little more, check your Facebook a little more, but oftentimes we find ourselves on our phones when we're with people around us. I can think of going to a restaurant just some time ago, a few days ago, and there was a dad on his phone sitting next to his kids and his wife had her hand like this, just looking so bored because the husband needed to check email or whatever he needed to do. For some reason, we perceive our Facebook friends or our Instagram followers as more urgent than the people around us, thinking that, well, they're not there, so if I could stay in touch with them here and there, that's probably a good thing. But the one thing we realize we really need in this world is true intimacy. We long for intimacy. In fact, the millennial generation in particular longs for community and intimacy. But when we don't engage the people around us in an effective way, it robs us of the very thing that we're trying to pursue, which is good relationships and intimacy in those relationships. And so putting away the smartphone is going to help us actually engage it, and we're going to actually be further along in the goal that we're actually trying to reach. The second way your smartphone is wrecking your life is that it's causing you so much more stress than you need to be under. We've got our phones set to alert us when we get text messages, when we get phone calls, when we get Facebook messages, when we get Instagram likes. Now we've got our phone set to when we get Groupons or when we get Yelp alerts or if a Pokemon is nearby. I think we're going a little overboard. Here's the big problem. We're all like Pavlov's dogs, right? In the study where the dog starts salivating at the sight of a piece of meat. That's how we are. Every time our phone beeps, we start salivating. Here's what happens. Our cortisol hormone spikes when we hear that beep, and we reach for our phone as fast as we can, trying to answer it. Oh, it's just 10% off of Groupon. Didn't need it. But you're just putting your body into this cycle where its cortisol level spikes, its adrenaline spikes, you go into fight or flight mode all the time, constantly, maybe 50, 60, 70 times a day, when your body was never meant to do that. Now, fight or flight syndrome is good. You need that, particularly if you're hiking through the woods and you see a bear and you need to run. That's when you need that adrenaline spike. The problem is we have that adrenal rush all day, like we're running from a bear constantly. What's that's going to do is it's going to deplete our adrenal glands, and we're going to get things like adrenal exhaustion and adrenal fatigue, and we're going to get our cortisol is going to go through the roof, and it's going to be misregulated, so it's going to spike in the evenings when we want to go to sleep, and it's going to be nowhere to be found in the mornings when we need it to wake up, and we're going to rely on things like coffee. And so your smartphone does affect you. As small as the device is, people think they're immune to it, but it's actually disrupting you physiologically, and it's something we need to pay attention to. The third way your smartphone is wrecking your life is because it's destroying your sleep. Now, we all have our phones probably either under our pillow or on the floor next to us. If you don't have a nightstand, hopefully you just have a nightstand and it's right there. That thing, I like to call it the sleep killer. The first reason it's a sleep killer is because it emits blue light. And so what we do is we pick it up at 8:30, 9 o'clock, 10:30, whenever we go to sleep, and it pushes blue light directly in our eyes. And what that does is it causes our body to feel awake. And so it'll raise the waking hormones, and it'll perceive that it's daylight outside and it's time to wake up and move around. So many of us will stay up on our phones for hours in the evenings wondering, why can't I get to sleep? Well, your body thinks it's awake, so that's the problem. It's disrupted your circadian rhythm, and you can't get to bed at the right proper time. And now there's always going to be an issue every time you try to get in bed with this phone. To combat this, I'd recommend leaving your phone outside of the room and get a good old-fashioned alarm clock. And get off of your screens in the evening. Don't watch TV till 11:30. Get off TV as soon as the sun goes down. And if you do have to watch TV or you do need the lights on in your house, wear something called blue blocking sunglasses. They're sunglasses that look like Wayfarers, and they've got some orange lenses to block all the blue light. So I've got a pair of those. I'd recommend those. Your smartphone also emits electromagnetic forces, or EMFs, out of the phone while you're sleeping. And these things push directly into your brain and disrupt your circadian rhythm, so you're waking up at certain times of the night. And so the best thing you can do to avoid that is to put your phone on airplane mode, so that way you're not getting any of those waves. Your Wi-Fi can also affect your sleep as well, doing the same thing. And so I would recommend disconnecting your Wi-Fi. I've got a few things in my room called EMF filters that filter out any EMFs coming from outside. So all I have to do is make sure my smartphone's off and my wife's smartphone is off, and we sleep like a babies. Last way your phone is wrecking your sleep is the obvious one, is that it's actually making noise. Some of us don't even put our phones on vibrate. So every time we get an email, a Gmail alert, like I said, a Groupon alert in the middle of the night, we get waken up by noises. Some of us put it on vibrate, and we're getting vibrating noises waking us up. And I know that the reason is that we think that at some point somebody's going to die or get sick in the middle of the night, and it's going to or there's going to be a work emergency I'm going to need to answer. And I'll just ask you, when's the last time that's happened to you? Probably not for a while for most of us. And so there's typically not an emergency that can't wait for a few more hours. So I would say turn your phone completely off or put it completely in airplane mode so you're not bothered and disrupting your sleep. Those are my 3 ways your smartphone is wrecking your life. Take some precaution and do some of these tweaks to help your phone not be so much of a burden on you physiologically and physically, and you might find that you're actually feeling a lot less anxious, a lot less depressed, and a lot less stressed.